We all know the story of the Trojan War, the giant wooden horse, and the fall of the city of Troy. That's where our story begins, with a man named Aeneas, a Trojan prince destined for a fate far greater than he could ever imagine. This isn't just a sequel to the Iliad. It's a foundational epic of its own, the story of the birth of an empire, Virgil's Aeneid. So, picture this. Troy is in flames, a scene of utter chaos and destruction. Aeneas, guided by his mother, the goddess Venus, escapes the burning city. But he's not alone. He carries his elderly father, Anchises, on his shoulders and leads his young son, Aeneas, by the hand. This powerful image sets the tone for the entire epic. Aeneas is a man burdened by the past, responsible for the future, and on a mission from the gods. His quest, to find a new home for the Trojan people, a place in Italy where they can rise from the ashes and build a new Troy. But the journey is anything but easy. The goddess Juno, who absolutely despises the Trojans, is determined to stop him at every turn. She sees Aeneas as a threat to her favorite city, Carthage. As soon as Aeneas and his fleet set sail, Juno unleashes a furious storm, scattering his ships across the Mediterranean. It's a miracle they survive at all. Battered and bruised, they wash ashore on the coast of North Africa, right near the burgeoning city of Carthage. And who is the queen of Carthage? The brilliant and beautiful Dido. She welcomes the shipwrecked Trojans with open arms, offering them food, shelter, and safety. Venus, ever the protective mother, sees an opportunity. She conspires with Cupid to make Dido fall madly in love with Aeneas, hoping to secure his safety. It works a little too well, in fact. At a grand banquet, Aeneas recounts the harrowing tale of Troy's fall and his subsequent wanderings. Dido is captivated, not just by his story, but by the man himself. Aeneas and Dido begin a passionate love affair. For a while, it seems like Aeneas might have found his new home. He helps Dido build her city, and they rule together as king and queen. They're happy, but the gods have other plans. Jupiter, the king of the gods, sends his messenger, Mercury, to remind Aeneas of his true destiny. He wasn't meant to dally in Carthage. He was meant to found the Roman race in Italy. Aeneas is devastated. He loves Dido, but his sense of duty, his pietas as the Romans called it, is stronger. He knows he must leave. He tries to prepare his fleet in secret, but you can't hide something like that from a queen in love. Dido confronts him in a rage, her heart breaking. Aeneas, torn but resolute, explains that it's not his choice. It's the will of the gods. He sets sail, leaving a distraught Dido behind. Unable to bear the grief and humiliation, she climbs onto a funeral pyre built from Aeneas's belongings and takes her own life, cursing Aeneas and his descendants, foretelling an eternal enmity between her city, Carthage, and his future city, Rome. Haunted by Dido's death, Aeneas finally lands in Italy, but his trials are far from over. First, he must journey to the Underworld. Guided by the Sibyl of Cumae, a priestess of Apollo, he descends into the realm of the dead. This is one of the most famous parts of the poem. He sees the souls of the unburied, the fields of mourning where he glimpses the ghost of Dido, who turns away from him in silence. He sees the horrors of Tartarus, the place of punishment. But the most important part of his journey is his reunion with his father, Anchises, who had died earlier in their travels. In the Elysian fields, the paradise of the underworld, Anchises shows Aeneas a parade of future Roman heroes. He points out the souls of Romulus, Julius Caesar, Augustus, and countless others, all waiting to be born. He reveals the full scope of Aeneas's destiny. His descendants will build the greatest empire the world has ever known. This vision gives Aeneas the strength and purpose he needs to face what's coming next. He emerges from the underworld, no longer just a refugee, but the conscious founder of Rome. Back in the land of the living, Aeneas travels to Latium, the region in Italy where he's supposed to establish his new city. The local king, Latinus, is welcoming. Prophecies had told him that his daughter Lavinia should marry a foreigner, not her current suitor, Turnus, the hot-headed prince of a neighboring tribe. King Latinus sees Aeneas and thinks, this is the guy. He offers his daughter's hand in marriage. But remember Juno, she's not done yet. Furious that Aeneas has made it this far, she stirs up trouble. She sends a fury to infect Queen Amata, Lavinia's mother, and the Prince Turnus with rage. The queen is dead set against the marriage, and Turnus, feeling his honor has been insulted and his bride stolen, is ready for war. A small skirmish erupts and quickly escalates into a full-blown conflict. The second half of the Aeneid is essentially a second Iliad, a brutal and bloody war for control of Italy. Aeneas, knowing he's outnumbered, seeks allies. He travels up the Tiber River to the future site of Rome, where he allies with King Evander. Evander's son, Pallas, a brave young warrior, joins Aeneas's cause. Meanwhile, Venus gets her husband, the blacksmith god, Vulcan, to forge a magnificent set of armor for Aeneas. The centerpiece is the shield, which, much like the vision in the Underworld, depicts the future history of Rome, culminating in the victory of Augustus at the Battle of Actium. Armed with divine armor and new allies, Aeneas returns to the fight. The war is vicious. There are heroes and tragic deaths on both sides. Young Pallas is killed by Turnus, who arrogantly strips the boy's sword belt as a trophy. Aeneas, filled with a righteous fury, goes on a rampage, seeking vengeance for his fallen friend. The tide of the war turns back and forth, but eventually it all comes down to a final, decisive duel between the two leaders, Aeneas and Turnus. The duel is epic. They fight fiercely, but Aeneas, empowered by fate and his divine parentage, gains the upper hand. He wounds Turnus, who falls to the ground and begs for his life. For a moment, Aeneas hesitates. He sees Turnus defeated and pleading, and his instinct is to show mercy. But then, his eyes fall upon the sword belt slung over Turnus's shoulder, the belt he stole from the young Pallas. The sight reignites his fury. All thoughts of mercy vanish, replaced by a burning need for vengeance. In the poem's final chilling lines, Aeneas declares that it is Pallas who now strikes the fatal blow. He thrusts his sword deep into Turnus's chest, ending the war and sealing his destiny. And that's where the Aeneid ends. Abruptly, we don't see the wedding to Lavinia. We don't see the founding of the city. The poem concludes with the soul of Turnus fleeing to the underworld. It's a complex and somewhat unsettling ending. Aeneas, the hero, defined by his duty and piety, ends the story in an act of violent rage. Virgil wrote the Aeneid at the request of the Emperor Augustus, and it's very much a piece of political poetry, designed to legitimize Augustus's rule by connecting him to the gods and the legendary heroes of Troy. But it's so much more than just propaganda. It's a profound exploration of destiny, loss, the conflict between duty and personal desire, and the immense human cost of creating something new. Aeneas isn't a simple hero like Odysseus or Achilles. He's often sorrowful, reluctant, and burdened. He is a man who loses his home, his wife, his lover, and so many of his friends, all in service of a future he will never get to see. And that's what makes his story so powerful and enduring. A cornerstone of Western literature that still resonates with us thousands of years later. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest epics, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the ancient world.